Hello, everyone. This is your host, Debra Poneman, and I'd like to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Dianne Collins. Dianne is considered one of the most important thought leaders of our time. She's a 6-time award-winning best-selling author and the creator of QuantumThink, a new system of thinking that leaps us from the outdated old worldview limits of the industrial age to the up-to-date new worldview of our current quantum age. Dianne has appeared on more than 100 radio and TV shows. She was a keynote speaker at the International Enneagram Association, a featured guest speaker at the University of Miami, and was invited to present in the prestigious lecture series of the Florida International University program in the study of spirituality, along with distinguished speakers, including the Dalai Lama. With her husband and business partner, Alan K. Collins, Dianne consults leaders in the world's leading corporations, including Accenture, AT&T, CNN, and DuPont, as well as to officials in the United States government. Dianne's a graduate of the University of Miami in philosophy and psychology and is a lifelong student of Siddha Yoga, mind science, energy mastery, and leading-edge models that make life better and more joyful. Her work has transformed and inspired the lives of thousands of people and hundreds of businesses around the world. She's a master of translating ancient knowledge into quantum modern wisdom and puts it all together to integrate Eastern and Western mastery traditions, the principles of subtle energy and resonance, spiritual connection and universal laws with cutting-edge quantum discoveries to make it practical in everyday life. Dianne is determined to share the way for us to finally live the wisdom, not just know it. To do this, she takes you straight to the core of the dynamics of creation and, most importantly, shares how to master creating and manifesting. And today, Dianne is going to share why answering the call of wisdom is essential to mastering a joyful life and accomplishing your goals. Also, the 3 most important types of wisdom for you to become a modern-day shaman. Additionally, we're going to talk about the leap from ordinary thinking to quantum thinking and have a special live interactive experience to connect us to our unique purpose. And finally, we will learn the QuantumThink method to go from knowing the wisdom to living it. Whoa, I am really, really excited about this. Dianne, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the call.
It is so my pleasure to be with you, Debra, and to be with everyone in this conversation with us.
Well, there are so many items in your bullet points that I personally want to know for my life, so I am ready to go. And I would love for you to start out by telling us a little bit about your journey and how you came to develop this really amazing body of knowledge.
I would love to. And first I want to say, Debra, that I am so excited to be in this particular conversation, answering the call of wisdom, because this is really what happened to me in my journey, and I know what it has done for me in terms of experiencing joy and actually just, every moment being so grateful for the honor of being able to allow the wisdom that comes through me. So what happened to me is I woke up and into life, and I started questioning at a very early age 4. I won't go through every year, but fast forward to teenage, and I started looking in the world, and I was always philosophical and thoughtful and contemplative as a youth, and I thought, there's something off with this picture, because there's all this wisdom in the world, 6,000 years of wisdom at now the touch of a smartphone, the touch of a tablet. And yet, when you look in the headlines of the news, or when you even look maybe in your own family or with your friends, you realize, why aren't we living it? And so I started my quest, and I started, Debra, to really investigate anything that I felt would lift consciousness, would leap us out of this kind of soporific, this sleepwalk state where it's not matching up, that, the way that we're actually being and the way that we think we're being or the way we aspire to be are really, there's a little bit of a chasm there. So I studied along the way. You noted some of those things that I studied. I studied philosophy. I studied energy healing. I studied various yogic traditions and, a lot of the things that people who are with us now in this conversation have studied and continue to, because we know there's value in all of it. But what happened for me is that I really came across, okay, well, if you want to know how to get what you want in life, whether it's an inner experience of peace, whether it's a relational experience, quality relationships, and the ability to communicate and connect, whether it's an outer experience of, houses, money, and cars, accomplishments in work, spiritual connection, any of it, well, you'd have to know the dynamic of creation that we've been endowed with for human beings. So all of us have heard along the way, and from the ancient wisdom, and the Buddha said, all that we are is a result of what we've thought. The Upanishads said a similar statement, the Christian and the Judaic Bibles, and all of the modern, and the classic wisdom teachers, prosperity teachers, as you think, so you become. So I thought, well, all you had to do is change your thought to change the world. Then, again, why does it still look the way it does? And this is what eventually led me to discover something that I call my revelation. And that is, though we imagine we think freely, independently, we all like to think of ourselves as independent thinkers, right? That we're choosing our thoughts every moment. Now, we do have the opportunity to choose our thoughts every moment, but what I discovered is that thought, like everything in the universe, takes place in a system. It's a whole system. It's not one thought at a time. And so the second question was, well, if thinking creates reality, what's creating our thinking? And I discovered through meeting who became a good friend and my mentor, Dr. Fred Alan Wolf, a quantum physicist, writer of many books and for the layman in science, and he showed me how science makes a discovery. They invent a term, for example, quantum leap, which means energy does not move in a smooth, continuous flow, the discovery by Max Planck, but it bursts in leaps that he called packets of quanta, hence the term quantum leap. And that kind of terminology comes into the language and eventually filters into the thinking. Well, my revelation was that it's not one term. It's the whole system. And the system of thinking is based in what we call the worldview, the overarching worldview that's kind of silently functioning in the background of our culture, collectively and individually. So the dilemma that we have is that we're in a quantum age, but we're still thinking according to an industrial age worldview. And this is what happened. So it's like, I got the tap on the shoulder. I didn't one day say, hey, I think I'll create a system of thinking. And this is why this topic, answering the call of wisdom, because for me personally, I answered the call of wisdom and I thought, well, we need to update ourselves. If I could put together a culmination of these principles, and more importantly, have it go from just another body of knowledge or a set of ideas or principles, and figure out a way that we go from knowing the wisdom to actually living it, to be walking, talking embodiments of the wisdom. This is really my story, and this is my quest, and this is what I've been fortunate to discover a way.
Beautiful. And how precious is that to take it from just knowing it to living it and walking and talking it, and that's what we want to learn. And I just love that term, answering the call of wisdom. It's so gorgeous. And I hear from your story that you did answer the call of wisdom. And could you tell us why you feel it's essential for all of us to do that in order to live a life that's full of joy and is masterful, and even to accomplish our goals?
Absolutely, Debra. And I want to say it even more fervently, more enthusiastically. I would say this: answering the call of wisdom is probably the most important thing we can do at this moment in the unfolding of the human spirit and how that plays out in our world. Answering the call of wisdom, which I will get into some of the distinctions of it in a moment, answering the call of wisdom directly relates to and influences, impacts what we can accomplish in life, the way that we are in our relationships. It influences the way that we relate to worldly affairs, global affairs, how we relate to it in our own experience of that. And therefore, it relates to our moment-to-moment state of being and our own peace of mind. Now, Debra, you and I and everyone here knows and realizes this fact. We are in a time of evolution unlike any we've witnessed or known. We know that what must evolve now is our own awareness, our thinking, since thinking creates reality, our own consciousness. So the world, when you look at it, it appears to be crazier and scarier, really, every day. And yet at the same time, we sense, we experience this bright light opening up. This is what these teleseminars are all about, why we're here. We are experiencing at the same time of seeing this craziness and this dissolution, this dissolving of the old. We're experiencing an elevation in energy frequencies. And on a very practical level, we see people's consciousness opening up. You know, people who maybe haven't been on a conscious path. And all of a sudden, we start to see it in TV, in movies, in what we read. And this is like a breath of fresh air coming through. So, you know, I like to think of it as we could just breathe this in now and know that Providence is taking care of us when we are wise enough to answer the call of wisdom. So to answer your question, what does it mean to answer the call of wisdom? Well, several years ago, I had the good fortune to meet the Mayan keeper of the knowledge. His name is Poneman. And we were on a trip, my husband and I were on a trip to a conference in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And the reason I went is because I knew there would be these shamans there. You know, I said, let me hang out with the shamans. And in the Mayan tradition, the keeper of the knowledge is, the way that they do it is they pass down from generation to generation through passing it on, passing the word on of the wisdom. So one day, Poneman, he was giving a little talk in the room, and he said, got very quiet, Debra, and he said, shamans are people who live in wisdom. And now, and he looked at all of us, you know, it was like a poignant moment. And now it is time for all of you to become shamans. And this was such a profoundly penetrating statement. It made you vibrate right there, a higher frequency on the spot. At least it did for me. But you could feel that palpably in the room. Now it's time for all of you to become shamans. So, we think of like, oh, we'll go be with the shamans, we'll visit the shaman, we'll get a shamanic healing or whatever. And I realized then this means answering the call of wisdom. Let me say some of what it means. It means that we are aware of the energies of the time. So when I say time, I don't mean, this day, this month, this year. This is a cycle that we're in right now, to be aware of the energy cycles. And, when energy cycles change, when the seasons change, when the weather changes, to live a conscious life is to be in tune with that. So collectively, it's to realize that in this time of great transformation, we look to see how we can be masterful in directing our lives now in light of this great transformation that some people call the great shift. And individually, answering the call of wisdom is to know what you, yourself, you as an individual, what are you here for? To know in every aspect of your being that you belong here, that you're part and parcel of the whole of life. It's to definitively know this with confidence, courageously know this, to boldly live the most authentic you that you can know yourself to be. And thirdly, most importantly to me, answering the call of wisdom means to make this practical, Debra, and I call this applied wisdom. So, when you think of it, I was thinking about like different things that we love to do, and most of us familiar with the profound Sanskrit greeting, namaste, namaste. The great self in me honors and recognizes the great self in you. This is applied wisdom. We send blessings to one another in our emails, correspondence, blessings. This is applied wisdom. But I want to have us go deeper with this applied wisdom. And what this means is that it's time to master the system of thinking we think from, the foundation of it, to expand ourselves in this way, to master what I call the 5 natural faculties of mind: intent, intuition, subtle energy, resonance, meditation, which is not just a practice, but it's an actual state of mind. This is applied wisdom. And of course, this is the purpose and intent of QuantumThink that came through me. So the question is always, how, right? How does it happen? How do we make this leap in consciousness? How do we answer the call of wisdom? And it really is essential to be able to distinguish more deeply what I would say 3 types of wisdom. You want to hear what they are? Of course
I do.
You do. Okay. And, I really was, when I was thinking about this, Debra, it's, again, because I had an intent to speak with everyone about this topic, this came through me freshly. And the reason I'm saying this is because each one of us have an opportunity every minute to turn knowledge into wisdom. So the 3 types of wisdom, the 3 dimensions of wisdom. The first one is universal. We could say that's eternal wisdom. The virtues, self-evident knowledge of the highest good, what we all aspire to, kindness, living a life of compassion, love, joy, freedom. The inner knowing that we're here to evolve, that's universal wisdom. And I say this is like the net in tennis. My husband and I are avid tennis players. So without universal eternal wisdom, think of it. There's really, what are we doing? What are we playing in? What's the mastery game? So that's like, of course. And then there's personal wisdom. And this is a little of what I've been talking about. Really being able to distinguish, not just, oh, I'm here for joy or I'm here for love. Well, of course, we're all here for that. That's the universal wisdom. But you were incarnated, you were born with specific tendencies, gifts, aspirations. You were born into a particular family, into a particular country. Maybe you had experiences. All of these things that we're born with, this is what is giving us, you could call it training in being able to live our unique purpose in this world. All of us are being called upon now for this, to really get in touch with this in a very specific way. And we're going to do an exercise about it, I know, during this call. But to be able to get connected very deeply so that it becomes a natural way of life. You know, years ago in my, as I was learning, I met a Vedic astrologer, and I said to him at the time, you know, I was experiencing like there was something in me, Debra, that had to come out. But I couldn't identify what it was. I didn't know what it was. I would get these kind of inclinations of wisdom. You know how sometimes something comes, it comes into your awareness, it comes in your mind, and you know, wow, yeah, that was something. You know, where did that come from? And so I had this whole thing coming on. I was feeling very frustrated about it. And I said to him, you know, what is it? I know there's something for me to get out, but I don't know what it is. And he said to me, well, when you realize, and I'm passing this on, paying this forward to everyone listening, when you realize that it's just your work on this planet, then you'll just be doing it. And that was really it. And that really penetrated for me, Debra. I don't know, is that coming across as powerfully as when he said it to me? It was like just an acceptance. When you realize it's just your work, you'll just be doing it rather than frantic, what should I do, what's my purpose, right? You ever have that experience yourself?
That is, you know, that is so profound, I have to tell you, because I feel like at this time, people are trying to figure out their purposes. It's almost like an obsession. It's like eating them up instead of making them joyful. And that is so profound what he told you.
It was. And once I realized that, I just relaxed, because then when you realize, oh, well, whatever is coming through me, and it's usually, you know, the thing that seems the most easy for you, that's usually it. You know, well, there's not one purpose. Your purpose is expressed in, you know, infinite ways throughout your life, but we'll get to that. So the three dimensions of wisdom: universal, personal, which is what is unique to you, and then there is where we get to the practical, applied wisdom. Cosmic, universal, which is eternal, personal, which is unique to you, and cosmic wisdom. What is cosmic wisdom? Cosmic wisdom is wisdom of knowledge of the laws, the operating principles of the universe that operate throughout life and therefore within you and me. We're part of nature. And these are what we know, you know, in our terms that we talk about with our colleagues as the laws of manifestation, the laws of creation, and the like. And so this is the practical wisdom. And it is so important to be able to integrate this in our way of being so that we become the walking, talking embodiments of this wisdom. And the practical wisdom, and this is again, of course, I'm here as the creator. I'm actually the vehicle, but let's say the creator of the QuantumThink system. This was it came to be my purpose, at least one expression of my purpose, is to make that available to people. So, it's a very interesting thing that you said, that people are obsessed with it, and then it starts to become like, instead of being the joy that it is, because if we really want to know what our greatest contribution is, and I know you know this, but I just want to say it so that it's present for all of us. Your greatest contribution is your own state. We know what you resonate. Your state is what you resonate. What you resonate, you emanate. What you emanate, you not only create and attract, you contribute. Even if you're doing nothing, I know you've been to India, these great beings who just, they sit around, they look like they're doing nothing, but what are they doing? They have such an awakened presence that just their own state is a contribution, and this is why people flock to them. So it is our great and sacred task to be joyful, because our joy affects our family, our work environment, our social communities. Our state affects our world. This is part of quantum thinking, realizing that this interconnected and interrelatedness through these invisible quantum fields of energy, intelligence, consciousness, that we are always affecting our world. So when you know, why is this important and how does this connect? When you know who you are in terms of your unique wisdom, this is possibly the greatest experience of joy that you can begin to give yourself. And again, how? How do we achieve walking in wisdom? How do we become established in the state of joy so that we're not dependent on something external to us to be happy, to be joy? We live from that state. This is the state, the mastery state from which all great accomplishment derives. How do we get to know who we are this profoundly so we can live our wisdom? I heard that the sages say that when we're in the womb, Debra, we're already asking, who are we? Who am I? And it probably is true, when you think about the soul. So this really leaves us, this knowing, these are all interconnected, because we want to live the universal wisdom. We want to do it, express it through who we uniquely are, and we want to be able to master the cosmic wisdom, the principles, the laws and operating principles, the universal laws within ourselves, so that we are adept and adroit at whatever we do, and we're ready for anything and any transformation that's going on in the world.
Amen. Wow. That was incredible. And I've been wanting to ask you, I probably should have asked you at the beginning, because you've been giving us tastes of this, but when you say that knowledge, I can't remember how you said it, we can turn knowledge into wisdom, okay? And that knowledge has to become wisdom in order for it to be meaningful. And I believe that your whole system, what you think this system called, I think you would call this system a QuantumThink, or a method. QuantumThink is the way that we could actually live the wisdom, okay? But I don't really understand what QuantumThink is. Is it an actual method?
Well, there is a method to how it works. QuantumThink is an actual system of principles. It's 21 principles, 10 of which are the core principles. And what QuantumThink does, it combines insights from the most cutting-edge discoveries of science, so we could say quantum for short at this particular age, that are now verifying and merging with universal wisdom, that knowledge that is common to all wisdom traditions, ancient and modern, and making it practical in everyday life, right? Applied wisdom. This is what it's all about. Now, the method which you brought up, which is very, very important, like how does this happen, right? How do we go from having something become knowledge to having it become wisdom? How do we go from, knowing it to living it, espousing it, teaching it to living it? And we can look at how we learn anything. So the method of quantum thinking is what I call the art of distinguishing, a new worldview of learning, the art of distinguishing. And what does that mean? Well, think about the way that we learn. We learn experientially by having an experience. And then we are able to distinguish what it is that we experience. And thirdly, we can become aware of what it is. So to quantum think, you bring something into your experience in such a way that it alters your relationship to it. For the better, of course, it's an expansion, it's an awakening beyond the automatic conditioning. I didn't say about, what's the difference between quantum thinking and ordinary thinking. I should say that, is that the ordinary thinking, which goes undistinguished as such until we are doing it right now, practicing the art of distinguishing right here and now. But what I lovingly call the old world view, the industrial age worldview, where the scientists in the 17th century declared only matter is real, only the physical is real. And therefore, everything that followed in our culture was oriented around the ordinary five senses. You can ask yourself, Debra, why don't we learn about these faculties of mind, intent, intuition, subtle energy, resonance, meditation? Why don't we learn that in traditional education? Well, hopefully it's changing now, that's our intent. Because our educational system is based on only matter is real. And so what do we study? We study the matter, the gray matter, the brain. We may study the brain connections. But we're not teaching our young people, we haven't been, I want to put it in the present tense that we are now, teaching our young people. We went from, in this paradigm shift, this scientific paradigm shift, from a matter-based reality to a mind-based reality. Shouldn't we be learning and teaching how to use the natural faculties of mind? And it's not just cognitive thinking, the click, click, click of the left brain activity, which is important, of course, too, whole brain, but how we connect to the energy intelligent field that we are surrounded by, the mind field. So when you're quantum thinking, what you're doing is you are making a literal quantum leap in consciousness so that you're looking from the more expanded and up-to-date world view that we can call for short our quantum world view. Now, a lot of us are familiar with many of the quantum principles. This is important to know the various ways that they work. You've had many great teachers in this series who are teaching these things, about the universe is holographic, our mind is holographic, the body that way. All these different things, how to work with subtle energy, how to, use it in healing modalities, all of it. But here's the distinction of the work that came through me, the wisdom that comes through me, is that when you get it as a system, the system takes you with it. It's like a vortex. So if you think about we live in a world of systems. You go into a department store, it has its own system. You have free will, free choice within that system. But when you step into that system, when you drive on the road system, it takes you with it. You're working from the context of it. So to the extent that we're still conditioned in our thinking, Debra, by the old world, literally called the classical mechanical worldview, at that point in our evolutionary cycle for all of us as a humanity, when you think about it, I say not to insult us, but in many ways we became mechanical and automatic too. And you think, why am I having these thoughts that I don't want, or that are disparaging? I call them wretched self syndrome thoughts, anything of the I can't do it, I'm not good enough, and any variation on that theme. And so when you're quantum thinking, you're relating to the fact that we live in a reality of energy and flux. There is nothing fixed and static about it. Now, this is the good news, because this is what enables us to create anything. If life were fixed and static and determined, then all we could do is push the pieces around on the chessboard. But we are born with the faculty of being a co-creator in this world. We're able to be in the system. Now, to the extent that we're conditioned in automatic in any way in our thinking, to that extent, we're not actually a choice. That's why I call it the myth of choice. Now, what happens when you're quantum thinking is that you're relating to the world through the fact that we exist in fields together, in mind fields. I like to call it the thoughtosphere, just for fun. There's the biosphere, there's a thoughtosphere. And so I'm going to give a distinction right now that can free you forever, and I do mean forever. This one distinction can alter your life forever. When I go on all these radio shows, I always say it, so you may have heard me before if you've listened to anything that I've been speaking, because I feel this is so important, Debra, is that when you can make a distinction between a thought you originate, a thought that you initiate, and a thought that just visits from the mind field. Now, the old world view, which was a view that taught us how to analyze, that's good. Look at the data, categorize the data, analyze the data, make conclusions about the data, and then live as though those conclusions are the absolute truth. Well, that's okay still in some areas of life. But if you want to create the new, if you want to manifest something new, that way of thinking is not the most effective. So what do we do with these thoughts that are visiting? We don't have to analyze, well, I have this thought because, my mother told me when I was 2 years old, or my teacher said I'd never make it, or whatever it is. Sometimes those thoughts can be helpful, as we know, people who overcome those things. But for right now, going forward, you want to be able to have a consciously masterful relationship with your own mind. Why? Because our mind is our life and we are not our mind. Whatever fills our consciousness is giving us our experience of life. And remember, what we experience, we emanate. That creates our resonant field. So, our mind is our life and we are not our mind. We are that awareness that can become aware of and distinguish what is in our mind. So we're looking at it like this. A thought can come in from the surrounding mind field. Why? Because we exist in fields together. Because we are so accustomed to not relating on a regular basis to what is invisible to us. Remember, we were brought up under the ordinary five senses. Because of that, we may not realize that, wait a minute, every thought that enters my own personal mind sphere may not be my own. So here's the distinction. Distinguish between a thought you originate and a thought that just visits. The way that my husband and I, Alan Collins is my partner and everything in life, is we say, look at it like a bird flying by your window. I know in mindfulness that's, a practice too, to just watch the thoughts go by. But I'm saying something additional to that, which is these thoughts are not even our own. They're certainly not the truth, because there is no absolute truth other than what is eternal and divine, however you relate to that. But for ordinary human life, energy in flux informed by intelligence, where we are the focal point, our own observation, what we hold in mind and awareness, is what is shaping our experience. So just because we have a thought doesn't make it the truth. You don't have to believe every thought that comes across your thoughtosphere. You don't have to identify with every thought. You can make this distinction, Debra. And this is so freeing. I wonder if you are experiencing even the freeing power of it right now.
Well, what I'm experiencing right now is the freeing power of knowing that I have that freedom.
That's beautifully said. You're so brilliant. That is really great.
It's absolutely true, and that we don't have to believe every thought that we have. I mean, but it's on such a much deeper level. Like I do on a surface level, we hear something and we could decide whether we believe it or not. Oh, I don't really believe that restaurant's so good. But you are talking about this on a much more profound level. And what's mind-blowing to me is how we have unknowingly bought into the milieu, that we bought into the group think, and it's based on this systematic. When you said we were so systematized, like in the industrial age, I thought, really, it's 20, whatever it is, whatever year we're in, and yet we are. We're almost like robotic in a way.
Yeah, and I like to say, there's nothing wrong with us, okay? What if there's nothing wrong with us? And we're not always robotic, but, the great yogic sage Patanjali said, well, if you want to wake up, right, for an awakening, if all other methods fail, you can wake up by noticing that you're asleep. So it's something, right, profound. That's also a nice freeing statement. Thank you, Patanjali. So, it's that when you realize, right, that we're still, even those of us on a conscious path, those of us who have been on this awakening journey our entire lives, and we know it will be continuing for our entire life, even we are still under the influence of a lot of this automatic thinking. Now, automatic thoughts, which I borrow a term from science, least action pathway, least hyphen action pathway, the least creative action, the way the energy goes, because it's been that route before. You can have an emotional least action pathway that are habits. Some emotions are just habits. We don't have to analyze everything. But what I was going to say, Debra, is that there's nothing wrong with us. It's not personal. It's cultural. It is just a leftover vestige of the old world view. And also to be able to come into the realization that in a universe of whole systems, interpenetrating one another, that to make this shift to living the wisdom, it requires looking from it rather than at it. So if you're living in Los Angeles, you want to know what it's like to live in New York, you can watch a video, you can talk to your friends about it, you can read a book on it, Somebody can bring you a souvenir from New York, but the fact is, right, until you go there and start to live in the system that's called New York City, you don't really know what the experience is. So the art of distinguishing is to bring something into your awareness in such a way that it alters your relationship to it. This is what we've been doing in this entire conversation. And what happens, so then you think to yourself, oh, really? Well, what am I supposed to, experience everything? How do we answer the call of wisdom? How do I have to experience everything? And, an aspect of living the personal wisdom, the wisdom that's unique to you, is, a very important aspect of that is the authenticity. And all the great meditation masters and sages, they will tell you, if you want to know a great teacher, if you want to know what one of the characteristics that makes a great teacher is that authenticity, is that they've actually experienced what they're teaching, what they're talking about. Otherwise, it's conceptual. So when you say it's almost like we're robotic, the old world, the industrial age worldview is the conceptual way of knowing. Actually, I have a distinction from QuantumThink that I wanted to go into, the 4 aspects of knowing, but because that will really help us with all of this. But what I wanted to say about the art of distinguishing is that what QuantumThink, the intent. Now, we know in every tradition we've ever studied, any of us, right, whether you're studying the indigenous culture's wisdom, whether you're studying sound healing, whether you're doing, energy healing, whatever it is we're doing, intent is the central, the most important creative dynamic for human beings. Whatever you're doing, your consciously generated intent is the dynamic of utmost importance. So what I was saying is that when you're wanting to live your personal wisdom, is that what is your intent? We can have an intent, Debra, that it is authentic, so that what we are delivering to someone else, what we're sharing, the gift that we're giving to the world, is authentically felt, experienced by others. And what I was going to say is the old world view was a view of separation. It's often called the reductionistic model because, what did the scientists say? It was the universe as a giant machine. Now universe is giant mind, but the universe is a giant machine. Let's divide everything up into its parts, break it down into the smallest unit, figure out what is it made of and how it works together, cause and effect, and we'll figure out how to predict and control nature. Well, how did that affect our thinking? That gave us the either-or mechanism, liberal, conservative, black, white. In the physical dimension, that was a one-dimensional reality. We know we're in a multi-dimensional reality, physical, energetic, spiritual, virtual, esoteric, of the soul, divine, cosmic laws. We're in this multi-dimensional. We have to look at everything multi-dimensional. This is part of living the cosmic wisdom. But the old world view, because it was based in the physical, what we could glean with our ordinary 5 senses, it conditioned an atmosphere of separation. And, you've often heard in spiritual wisdom, separation is, the cause of all suffering. Think of that. It's true. Because when you realize that even somebody who wants to answer their own call of wisdom, if you're feeling separate, if you're feeling isolated, then this is a cause of suffering. And when you realize you belong here, your talents, your gifts are needed here. We need every one of us here right now, especially now in this time of transition. But again, the old world view gave us the gift of learning to analyze, use ordinary logic, being able to, organize life out of chaos, but it also gave us a conceptual reality. So when, I said right at the beginning, how did I get on this? Because I saw the chasm between how we want to be in the world and how we are actually being. And that is what we could say when you say people are, we're almost robotic, or you watch these politicians and you wonder what is going on here, that it's being stuck in that conceptual reality conditioned by the old world industrial age view. So when you make this leap, it's so simple, Debra. It's like amazingly simple. But that's how it works. So now, I know I've been talking a lot about this.
Yes,
so
we want to have the experience.
We want to have the experience. Okay, let's have an experience right now that will enable you to begin to distinguish your unique purpose very specifically. So the first thing we want to do is let's just get quiet together. Take some beautiful, deep breaths. Breathe that luscious oxygen in, that life force in, that exhilarating life force, and just let all your shoulders drop naturally and just relax into this contemplation. And as you're listening, I want to give you a little context for this exercise. When you're living and thinking from wholes, you also think of your life as one whole story. Now, imagine your life is one whole story. In a well-written novel or screenplay, everything that is written is part of the whole. There is nothing in the story that doesn't belong, and there's nothing left out. So you're always connected to the whole of your story, to the whole of your life's purpose. Even as you go through life, it becomes hidden from your view and folded into the fabric of your life, and then what gets unfolded is what you're living now. So when you begin to live your life from your purpose, something very interesting happens. Nothing is wrong and nothing is wasted. You begin to see everything and anything that happens as an aspect of the unfolding. You see it as a lesson, a learning, or a clue to what you are here for. You begin to see the value in everything, the genius in everything, and this gives you great power in your life. Even in those circumstances you consider to be the worst or negative circumstances, when you live your life from the whole of your purpose, you see how that led you or will lead you to the next expression of your purpose, because our purpose is expressed in many, many multitude of ways as we go through life. Now, scientists tell us that everything that happens in nature happens through patterns of relating. So now that we're looking at our life as one continuous whole, not in parts, well, I did that, and now I'm doing this job, but that wasn't really it. No, every experience has given you training, additional development, personal development from universal infinite wisdom for expressing your purpose. So what we want to start to do now in this exercise, in this contemplation, in this distinguishing, is to start to look at some questions that will give you clues to your purpose. Now, you can write this. It's a good thing to write this down. And think about the first question, because this is the most important one. Maybe we'll just stay with this one. Imagine and think about, what do people come to you for? What kind of requests do they make of you? What do they want to talk with you about? Now, this is a really great clue to see the patterns in your life, because this would have happened whether you were 5 years old, 15 years old, 20, 50 years old. It doesn't matter what age, because in some way, your purpose is always expressing itself through you. And what we're doing here now is we're distinguishing it by connecting the dots, by seeing the patterns. So what do people come to you for? Now, a lot of people, when I ask this question, they'll say, oh, they come to me for advice, or they come to me for counseling, or they come to me to solve their problem. Well, that's fine. Any of us could say that in a way, but what we want to do here is look at it more specifically, not so generally, not so abstract. So if someone comes to you for advice, what is it in the way that you see the world that enables you to give them advice in such a manner that no one else can do it? Maybe it's that you have a mind that's an inventive mind, that is an adventurous spirit kind of mind, that you have a creative mind, that you see things in pictures, that maybe you always see the big picture, or maybe you see the immediate picture. These are all different qualities of the way that you see the world, your perspective, your unique perspective, that would shape the way that you would give advice or counsel to a friend, a coworker, client, or customer, a child, or a parent. What do people come to you for? Another question to ask yourself is, what kind of conversations do I generally find myself in? What pulls me in? What am I attracted to? We could say, what am I resonating with? But when you look at this very specifically, you will find it's very specific. It will be, some people love technology. Some people love accounting. Some people like to be in nature. And these are the kind of distinctions in your life. You'll see it throughout your life that pull you in. Now remember, the reason that we're doing this, I'll ask just one more question in the interest of time, is if you were standing on a street corner anywhere in the world and someone came up and started talking to you, what would be the general industry of that person? For example, I tend to meet people in the entertainment industry. I also tend to meet mystics and psychics. It's no matter where I am. I could be in a supermarket and the person in the line in back of me start talking to me and they're a mystic. Maybe you meet healers. Maybe you meet teachers. Maybe you meet airline pilots. So the answers to these questions very, very specifically. And there is something that I know we're going to be offering that will continue this exercise. But I think that you're getting the point that when you're looking at your life as one whole story and you start to make these connections and you realize, this is the important statement, you are being given every moment the experience that you need, the training from infinite intelligence, the right people. Who did you connect with at any point in your life? Where were you living? What were you doing? It's all an aspect of continuing to train you for the unfolding of living your unique wisdom, unique to you, how the wisdom comes through you. This is answering the call of wisdom.
Wow.
What did you get, Debra?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of different aspects to it, but I realized that ever since I was little, I never thought of my life as a continuum, but people like to be with me because I'm really fun.
That's very important to distinguish.
I love to have a good time. I love to laugh, and because I've always seen what's right and what's good about them. You know, it's sometimes when somebody will point out some weakness of a person, I would be like, really? I never even noticed it. So that's, I guess I just spontaneously, not falsely, but spontaneously have people feel good because I just see the beauty. And then the people who come into my life are usually almost always spiritual seekers. People like you and me, people like the listeners. I mean, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, it's all of us who are light workers who are on the path, and it's always been that way. I mean, you know, I became a meditation teacher when I was barely 18. I went off and became a teacher of meditation, meditating 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
That connection, you see, and, you know, it's interesting in the non-local mind field, right? Because I had in my notes to make a point about maybe you have a sense of humor, and here you brought up about the fun. So that was a perfect connectivity between us right now. But this is very important because you went to be a meditation teacher, and here a very important aspect of your purpose is that enlightening, right, is lightening people up. Now, you needed the experience that one gets from meditation practice, or you wouldn't be able to deliver on that part of your purpose. If you didn't experience that yourself, this is how it makes a connection, Debra. You wouldn't be authentically qualified to be delivering on your purpose, your job on the planet with a capital J, unless you had been given that experience. You were drawn to that. And so this is how it becomes like such a joy. It's so magical. You say, oh, now I understand why. You know, I was sitting in a corporate office in corporate management for 7 years. Why was I doing that when all I really wanted to do is create a television series? Well, because, right, or I wanted to actually, you know, elevate consciousness through entertainment. So here I was in a corporate office. How did that fit in? Because now I know how to talk to people who are senior executives who I now consult and bring this kind of thinking to them. So this is how it works. Anyway.
That is so cool. I love it. I love the quantumness of it.
Completely. This is what I mean by living the wisdom.
Okay, so we have got to hear, I know that you put together a special offer for us because I want more of that. And because I love when things fit together. It's like click, click, click. It's just, my brain loves this. My heart loves this. And can you share with us, before you tell us this wonderful package that you've put together for our listeners, can you share with us perhaps some of the turnarounds that you've seen in the lives of people who have applied what you teach?
Yes, I have so many, but let me say a few of my favorites. A woman who I will call Julie, and she was in an independent business. And she was very much in, the personal development world and realized the value of all of the teachings. Yet she was very much, not in touch with her family, her mother, her siblings. They didn't really respect what she was doing. She loved what she was doing, but didn't have the confidence and wasn't making the money. And she started listening to the QuantumThink distinctions. This is the offer that I put together is this QuantumThink audio coach, which are the 10 core fundamental QuantumThink distinctions that you listen to this, literally it alters your life. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to it comes in because it's quantum. It's multidimensionally. It comes in physically, spiritually, mentally, energetically, emotionally. It comes in every way to your soul. So it's very easy. All you have to do is turn it on and listen. So she did this, and what happened is this is the authentic, amazing story. Her mother they hadn't really spoken much in a year. Her mother phoned her, Debra, and apologized to her. She didn't call the mother. The mother called her and apologized for the way she had been with her and how she really wanted to hear more about her business, and they developed their reunited an intimate relationship, and as did with her siblings. Out of nowhere, the mother called to apologize for how she had been.
Out of the quantum.
Yes, because all Julie did is shift her own state through quantum thinking, and of course learned how to use intent powerfully and a lot of other things. But she just listened to the distinctions. Then what happened further with her is that she was kind of shy. She was doing her business on a one-to-one basis. She called me up a few weeks ago, and she said, I have to share this with you. Now, this is months later since I've worked with her, but she said, I am now speaking in front of huge audiences of women. She said, I never realized my purpose. I am a teacher of entrepreneurial women. And this is what eventually came about in a very, very short period of time. And you want to talk about joy. She was like, first she texted me. It was like the text was bubbling over with joy. So that is one thing. Another thing, and I'd love to share this really quick, is that we had a gentleman who listened to the QuantumThink audio coach every day, at least one. They're all about 20 minutes long, so it doesn't take long, although people love listening to it because it gets you into an immediate meditative state. But anyway, he is by profession for many years, like 20 years, a hospital pharmacist. And he loves horse racing. Thoroughbred horse racing is his avocation. He always wanted to have a horse racing business. So it was like, well, how does he make that jump, right? From being a hospital pharmacist, which, by the way, he did not leave the profession and didn't want to leave. But anyway, what came about, and this is in the context of living your dream, manifesting your dream, it came to him. All he did is listen to the QuantumThink distinctions, the principles, and there's practices for the mind and awareness that I call recreations, recreating the distinction in your life through the art of distinguishing, what we've been doing. You just become aware of one little thing through the day, and all of a sudden, everything shifts. Well, let me tell you something. He now has a full-fledged, he's a breeder of horses, and together, and this was Alan and I happened to be part of it, because he invited us into a share in a horse, which we also used quantum thinking, the power of intent. This horse, which every trainer said, he's okay, every owner thinks their horse is better. I didn't know a thing about horse racing. We said to the trainer, let's go to the Breeders' Cup. It's like, the World Cup or the Super Bowl of thoroughbred horse racing, 140, the best horses in the world. Our horse, and the trainer went, well, I can't promise that. Quantum thinking, the three of us in unison, quantum thinking, that horse was in the Breeders' Cup. He didn't win, but he was in the Breeders' Cup. It was one of the best experiences of our lives. So this is what happened for this hospital pharmacist with a dream. And all he did is listen to these audios. Now, he was, he loves it, so he listened to it all the time. But our clients who we work with, they love these audios, Debra. I always think, oh, really? The president of, I won't say the company, but companies you would know. And yes, they're listening to these. They love just turning it on in their car. Everyone has MP3, Bluetooth, putting this on even for 5 minutes. And people tell me every time they hear it, something else happens. So it's like I could go into a lot of stories. I know we're just about out of time.
Yes, and we need to hear specifically about your product. And I want people to simply click on the special offer button that's on this page. So, Dianne, why don't you just go ahead and tell us what we're going to find there?
Okay. I sound so I'm enthusiastic because I want people to have this, because I am so grateful to just be the vehicle of having this come through me. And I know that people will be able to answer the call of wisdom in every aspect of wisdom by listening to this. And, of course, this is part of the cosmic wisdom. And it's a system. This is the 10 core distinctions called QuantumThink Audio Coach. It's professionally recorded. My husband and my partner, Alan Collins, Master QuantumThink Coach, who has a beautiful English accent voice. Everyone loves listening to him. And myself, and, little musical interludes, so it's fun to listen to. Entertaining, remember, that's my thing. So that you listen to this, and again, you just take it in. You don't even have to understand it. So there's an introduction, which goes over again, the difference between old worldview and new worldview thinking and why that's important and the time that we're in now of a great transition. And then it has the 10 distinctions. I want to go through them really fast because this is really important. The first one, holistic and holographic, principle of unity. But we know it as a concept. It's not just, some alternative medicine or something. It's when you start to see how this lives within us, when you start to stop trying to balance the parts of your life and start to integrate it, and everything, you will absolutely overcome that sense of overwhelm that we have right now with great technology and increasing complexity and everything speeding up, because we're trying to balance parts rather than live the wholeness. This will have you living the wholeness. The second distinction, observer-created reality. This is the core distinction of quantum physics, the observer effect. What does that mean? I say it very simply. What we bring is what we get. What we bring to our own observations, to our family dinners, to our client meetings, to our view of ourselves. When you get in touch with this, and this teaches you, this observer-created reality, how to use powerfully the power of intent. You break free from predictable outcomes and you masterfully manifest. This is how it works. Distinction 3, infinite possibility in every moment. There are infinite ways reality can manifest. And it depends on, clicking on, what are we going to click on the internet? Which reality are we going to hone in on? This helps you get rid of those least action pathways, those limited thinking habits, and has you thinking from infinite possibility as a conscious act. Distinction 4, success to mastery. We all have successes in our lives in many ways, but again, in this fast-paced world, we need to be able to become established, and that's a very important word, established in the state of mastery from which all great accomplishment derives, being ready and alert for whatever is needed now and what's best and what will work now, not relying on formulas of the past, which may no longer be effective. Distinction number 5, allowing. We are familiar with this, but I use allowing as one of the very important faculties of mind. That is, once you create your intent, this is the passive dynamic of creation, is that you understand what is meant by non-local mind, these connections through the mind field, and how we can connect through consciously looking for what is going to unfold from the 90% we can't see at the time that we create our intent. Distinction number 6, being in one conversation. I love this distinction so much. This could change all your relationships for the better, is that when, again, you're thinking from whole systems, you realize that, it's not parts of conversation. A speaker and a listener, you're waiting till the other person to stop so you can get your piece in. Meanwhile, you're in your own head. You're not even listening at all. This has you realize the conversation as one pulsating, alive wholeness, something alive that exists in the relational field where there are many voices. And what happens when you listen with one another this way and do the practice, listening with your whole being, not with just with your ears, is that things come up from the quantum intelligent field that you never would have heard or imagined when you listen this way, being in one conversation. The next one, transformation is distinct from change. Well, this is crucial for anything we want to do in life, because as we know, what you focus on expands. This gets this in so deeply, because in order to change something, you have to keep it in place. This is a paradox. In order to change it, if I want to change an angry habit, I have to keep the angry habit in place. But we don't really want the angry habit. So what do? This is the distinction. Transformation is you generate a new context. You create what you do want, and you have no attention whatsoever on what you don't. But when you listen, we all know this, when you listen to this distinction, that gets in you very deeply in every dimension, in every soul, spirit, DNA, physical, and every other aspect of you. Distinction number 8, the 4 aspects of knowing. This is the distinction that will enable you to immediately gauge why or why not your intent or your intention isn't or is working, and how to get it to work. That's all I'll say on that. The 4 aspects of knowing. How you're related to what you know. Is it an unawareness? Is it conceptual? Is it intuitive? Or is it participatory? When you get this distinction, it'll be clear to you and you'll know exactly what to do. Distinction number 9, perspective of all perspectives. This, for any leader, and we're all being called upon in today's world, to be the leader of whatever it is we do, whether you're paid for what you do, whether you're retired, whether you're 15 years old or anything in between, is to be able to have a view, to be able to see the value in everything, in every point of view, even when you don't agree with it, even when it's antithetical to yours, and to be able to live in that kind of state of equanimity. And the practice for that is non-attachment. And this is so powerful. Distinction number 10, being centered. We all say we want to get centered. What are we centered in? Present moment awareness. This distinction is a kind of meditative, well, they're all meditative, but it brings you to that state of center and focus within yourself. And not only that, this is the power of distinguishing. It enables you to access that state anytime, any place, in an instant. And this is so important, being in that state, because when we are in that 0 point state, being centered, that is when we connect. We are one with infinite intelligence. That's what has us get rid of the static on the radio of our being, so that we are creating not only effectively, but masterfully. So that's the basic program, Debra. And then what comes with it is what I'm really excited about because, and, you know, these are all bonuses because that, what I just read, is sold on its own and, you know, it has sold for a lot more money than what we're selling it for here, of course, because that's what's special about it. It's a special price, it's a special offer, and it has these very special bonuses. Again, I'm talking very fast for time. But QuantumThink Essences, a PDF downloads that gives you in writing the essence of each of those 10 distinctions. And it puts in writing the recreation, the practice written out for you for your convenience. There's also coaching worksheets for each one so that you can personalize. They're very simple. I like things simple. I don't like complicated. Don't give me a big manual. These are very, very simple one-sheet things where you can personalize so that you're very clear about your intent and how you're going to use each one of these distinctions. Then I have an article on coaching, creating intent, and distinguishing between intent and intention. Intention being a future goal. This is how I distinguish it. Intent being an activation of the energy intelligent field that becomes your personal resonance. That's a very important, very clear, simple distinction. Then I have a chart, comparison of the old worldview, new worldview characteristics, so you can see how they've influenced our thinking and how we can proactively now, we're doing when we listen to QuantumThink, is we are conditioning ourselves for this expanded worldview thinking. And then I have another bonus, which is an audio where I was talking about how to relate to money through the 7 dimensions that I mentioned. You know, we are in a multidimensional world. Now, this is so important because this audio will have you absolutely transcend any of the doubtful thoughts that you have about your relationship with money. Oh, it's not good, it's the root of evil, or whatever it is that came in from the cultural minefield. You'll clear it listening to this. Another important for this conversation that we've been in, the Holo Movement of Purpose. It's a chapter from my book as a PDF, and this gives you the full tilt boogie of distinguishing your unique purpose and how to do it through a little of what we did on the call today. Another one, and this has to do with business, an article, You Can't Get There From Here, Why Change Doesn't Work. Again, this enables you through very specifically showing you as a business person how to make these leaps so that you're living from the place where you want to be, from the end result, rather than trying to get there to your future goal from where you are now, because basically that doesn't work. And last and certainly not least is an article, Your Magical Mind, Are You Using It?, where I distinguish what I've been referring to as the natural faculties of mind, the 5 natural faculties of mind, giving you a new relationship with your magical mind, what they are and how to tap into them effectively. So basically, that's the whole package. I love this package. I know it works. I am passionate about it because it's amazing for people, Debra. It helps you get centered. You get peace of mind. You get confidence in yourself. You understand the quantum principles. You understand how they relate to spiritual wisdom. You get your place in the world. You can consciously and confidently answer the call of wisdom.
Amen. That's all I have to tell you. I am so excited about so many aspects of this. And one is, this thing of mindfulness. I know that it's a big movement and having that present moment awareness. And that's been something that I haven't been able to figure out. And you explained it earlier on in a way that I understand it. And I see this distinction number 10 being centered. So I'm excited about that one. And allowing, that's another one I'm very excited about. And I love how you say it's passive dynamic, is the passive dynamic. And you just have such a gorgeous way with words. And that's why you do. You make these distinctions. And the other thing I just want to say about this is I loved this interview. I was hanging on every word, but I also felt your concepts in my physiology as much as I felt them in your words. Do you know? It was
Perfect.
just an experience. And I think that's what you had said also, that it is a beautiful, beautiful body of understanding. And if you don't completely grasp it, doesn't matter because it goes in on that finest level, the level of the DNA. And it's so fantastic. So if you haven't yet, just click on the special offer button on this page to see for yourself what an amazing package this is. You will be so glad you did. And before we sign off, I'm going to give you the final word. You tell me, is there anything that you would like to share with everyone before we say goodbye?
I would like to say that whatever path you're on, that you are important. These are not just words. This is, from my heart to yours, soul to soul, mind to mind, that each one of us is so powerful, and that for you to know your importance, as Debra said, experientially, this is what happens. When you bring something into your awareness, when you bring your own unique purpose into your awareness, you're actually giving yourself an experience, and that is what integrates the wisdom. I don't know how else to say it except that you're important and that I'm counting on you. Everyone listening, I really am. I'm counting on every single one of us to bring about this new exquisite world that we all desire. It's up to us. And you can do it. And you can do it so easily. You can do it so easily when you break free of the old conditioning, which is what this is meant to do, and when you just connect into yourself, your purpose, your wisdom that comes through you, and what you are passionate about creating and expressing.
And as you said at the beginning, we are living at a time of evolution unlike any we've known before, and it's up to us to carpe diem, to just take advantage of this time and
to have fun doing it.
And to have fun doing it. And we totally had fun with you today. I am so absolutely, I was going to say impressed, but it's so beyond impressed by this body of knowledge that you have, and I won't even say created, that you brought together and offer to us as a vehicle to master effectiveness in a changing world. And I just thank you so very, very much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Debra. It's just been my honor and privilege, and just so grateful to be here. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for spending this time with me and with Dianne Collins. And I look forward to when we are together again. This is Debra Poneman. Have a wonderful rest of your day.